Okay, so hello and welcome everyone. I guess you could see this as a first look at my Coventry Airport scenery for Microsoft Flight Simulator I've been working on. Bit of a different video to normal. Normally I don't speak on the channel, so maybe this is the first time you've heard my voice, so hello everybody. Right, so what we can see here is just an overlook of the airport. So you've got runway 23 threshold here, runway 05. Prevailing wind at Coventry usually prefers runway 23 approach. I'll show you why that's significant a bit later on. I've put some extra detail into the approach to runway 23. Obviously still plenty of work to do. It's very much a work in progress at the moment. So I've been working on it for the last couple of months, since November. And there's still, in fact, a lot I actually want to do with the scenery to make it look even more realistic than it does already. So, I guess we'll jump in. We'll start up by the runway 23 sort of end of the airport. I will use the developer camera, move myself around. So, we'll jump down here. Okay. So, what you see here is the junction from the A45 / A46 Tollbar Island up to the airport. Obviously it's the little road junction. I've put a lot of detail into this. Maybe you might call it unnecessary detail. The reasoning behind this is the new sim is very much able to handle increased amount of objects, polygons, all that kind of thing, whereas the older sims such as P3D and FSX would have taken a more significant performance hit from doing this. So in adding all this, I'm obviously adding a bit more detail for the approach to runway 23. So if I just situate myself in the correct height for the pappies. So yeah, it's not complete. Currently this section, I've done this bit and I've done a bit of a road up Rowley Road here, as you can see. I might be modelling some of these buildings here in the coming weeks, just to add that little extra bit of detail, because I can assure you in real life there is not a house here. It's in fact an enterprise car dealership, I believe, rental place. So yeah, I'll have a look at these barriers I've made. I modelled the barriers myself. The traffic light models are actually purchased as 3D assets, which have then been customised to match the ones there in real life. So everything you see here, but there's still a few little objects such as sort of road bollards I want to put in yet. So what you see here is not the final product, however for the majority it does represent what the airport will look like on release at some point soon. So that's the road junction, and as you can see I've done perimeter fencing for the majority of the airfield right now. I'm still waiting on sort of reference imagery surrounding a large part of the airfield, especially over this part here, as I'm not too sure how deep down into the vegetation the fence goes, or if it just goes right around the airport perimeter before the drop off of the grass. So I'll speed up the developer camera. Let's zoom over here. So as you can see, this road section up here, it's not complete yet. Really this is just a placeholder for the improved version of this, which I will be working on among other things obviously. So the first building we've got here in front of us, which you can see just coming up. So this is the Coventry Airplane Club. This is actually the building I work in real life, so I've made particular attention to detail to make sure everything in this is obviously as accurate as it can be. The airport buildings themselves are made by a good friend of mine, also a developer for sort of Unreal Engine assets, and I was also dabbling in flight sim creation. So these buildings do not represent the final product. There may yet be a full rework of the texturing prior to release. However, since the original build of these buildings, I have already upscaled some of the textures, so you see the textures around the edge of a building. although not maybe 4K quality, they do represent, especially from a reasonable distance, like such as here, they do represent very well what the airfield looks like and the signage attached to the building. So I'll just change the weather. There we go. That's a little bit more legible. So, another example of the attention to detail I've put in here. This fencing, although it's just a fence object I've made, and as you can see the texture is repeated, the measurements and the diameters for the parts of the fence, such as the poles in between, posts, all that kind of thing, it is all accurate to the centimetre. I actually was up at the airport a few weeks ago measuring a few things around this area where I work. So all the fence panels are accurate. Seems like a really mundane detail, however, if you're obviously familiar with the airfield, it does add that extra bit of immersion. So, another example here, we've got this Coventry Airplane Club Flight Simulator Midland sign. This is also modelled to the exact measurements of real life, along with these poles and the Tudor environmental sign here, which is for, as you can see, the grounds maintenance company based in this building over here. You can see a few bits and pieces which still need to be done, such as especially the crash gates, so gates in which emergency vehicles would get in case of a fire on an aircraft, for example. They're yet to be modelled. And yet, what I'll do here, I'll move along. So, this area here, you've got the Midland Air Museum. So it looks a bit bare bones at the moment. I'm still working on acquiring permissions to include some of the aircraft you see here in the final release. Once again, this is a building which is off the airfield site, so you wouldn't necessarily see it when you're flying in just on an approach. However, originally I intended to just place down the buildings, sort of correct the aprons, all that normal kind of stuff, to make the airfield a bit more accurate as to the FS2020 default one. But over the course of the last couple of months, at every single opportunity, if I'm quite honest, I've been putting in more and more detail where I see an opportunity to put in this detail. Hence why I will hopefully be including all these aircraft which you see in the images here in the final release of the scenery. So, also modelled the car park. I'm yet to work on modelling the vegetation because here there is a hedgerow. The default FS2020 assets are rather lacking in terms of vegetation, and that system's still a bit finicky, so that's something I'm looking to work on, either through a method that I can do already or something that will be rectified in later releases of the SDK. So, I'm going to look over here, just one little sign I've placed down already. There's a number of signs which I need to model still, especially over this part here. There's a few signs which I'm yet to measure up and model in Blender. But this one here is a good example of one I've made, taken from a real world photograph. Just shows the tenants of the north gate of the airfield. This is the north side. There is also another entrance to the airfield which I'll get onto in a short while. But let's just take a short little drive up here. So, as you can see, this is the view you would see when you're coming in through the north entrance. Just peeking over the hedge here, we've got the Midland Air Museum, as you can see. Not in its finished state, like I mentioned earlier, however, that's something I'm working on. So, got some little cars parked up here. This is all obviously present as in real life. I've got the night lighting, which I'll preview a little bit later in this video. And one of the areas I've paid a lot of attention to detail, as small as it may be, I'll just turn down the developer camera a little bit, is this section here. And there is quite a wide range of, I say, grass assets within the SDK at the moment. So little things like these sort of weeds coming through the concrete, These concrete blocks are here in real life, textured to match ones, as I say, in real life. Just these small little details I've been making, just to try and make it look as realistic as possible, particularly for people who do work at the airport, fly out of the airfield, just little things like that. So, we'll take another little walk up here. Right, so, you can see I put a few bits of vegetation down here. Moving up to the Aeros building, which is also the, I believe, airfield management's building. Really well modelled, like I say, by a collaborator of this project. We've got all these night lighting here, some nice bushes. I'm still working on adding some more vegetation in just to densen it out, make it look a bit more accurate as to real life, but this does represent pretty much what it will look like in release, except there will be some additions to what you see here. Moving across to the airside section of this part here, we've got a little gatehouse for any entrances up to the fire station, so this is the fire station up here. We've also got the control tower, very well modelled. As you can see, there's a few little bits which I haven't done yet regarding sort of ground surfaces, something I'm working on at this moment. So, here we've got the fire station, Coventry Airport fire station, and a few generic Asobo assets such as these nice looking PBR sort of utility vehicles, I guess you'd call them. Front of the fire station, it does represent obviously what the airfield looks like in real life. I have put a fire engine down the side here. There's a few different details regarding this section here which I'm still working on. I do have a sign yet to put in here, which represents, I believe it's no entry runway, something like that. Some form of ground marking, which currently you can't see because I've been experimenting on, especially this section here, which is the brick block paving. A limitation of the sim currently, the only way of getting full resolution ground markings like you see here, I'll just zoom in a bit closer, hopefully I'm not giving anyone a bit of nausea. The only way of getting full res ground markings like you see here is by using flat 3D planes exported from Blender or any other 3D modelling program. So what you see here is a flat 3D plane, but that means I will also need to make those ground markings on top of this, so they'll overlay on top of here. But that's something I'll be working on in the coming weeks before the release. Also got the helipad here. This is the base to the Warwickshire, Northamptonshire Air Ambulance, I believe. Do an awesome job. You're always seeing their helicopters come flying in and out of the airfield. Obviously delivering patients to Walsgrave Hospital. So, let's jump over here. So, here you've got the Bravo apron. Although not used as you see in this example here with these different stands, the designations of the airport's parking stands have changed in the past few years, but what you see here represents what the airfield was like maybe 2017, 2018 time. You've still got room for smaller commercial aircraft such as maybe A318s, 737-300s, 500s, and of course any private jets that may still fly into Coventry are parked up on this stand whenever they arrive. So this is really the main parking area of the airfield for any sort of business or commercial visitors that do still, on the rare occasion, come into the airfield. Okay, let's move across here. So, what we've got here, as you can see, a few static aircraft. Another example of aircraft I'm working on acquiring permissions for to include in the scenery. The liveries themselves have been made by myself with a very useful paint kit for these aircraft. I am obviously seeking permissions for these, so do not expect 100% that these will be included in the release. However, obviously, as they are quite nice looking integral parts of the airfield and were present on the airfield when I was modelling this in terms of the era I'm modelling the airport on, they were in this position here. This one up here, for example, I spent a lot of time on getting a nice grimy looking effect on this aircraft, as it has been sat here in real life for a number of years, as you can see. So, moving up once again, we come to the DC-6 Dyna. So, if you know Coventry Airport, you probably know the DC-6 Dyna. Currently, in real life, circa February 2021, it is being dismantled along with the DC-6 you see behind it. G APSA and obviously this one G-6C. These are both being dismantled and moved to the South Wales Aviation Museum, I believe it is, in St Avon. The restaurant here, that's what the DC-6 here is. It was previously converted into a restaurant, operated for a number of years as a restaurant. Unfortunately, with the way the airfield has been going and the sort of owners of DC-6 Dyna making themselves scarce, in the last couple of years it's been pretty much abandoned in real life. I was up at the airfield a few weeks ago and it is indeed covered in a very large layer of green, sort of mossy algae kind of coloured markings. It's not been washed in a heck of a long time, let's just say that. I've made particular attention to detail to model the entrance building, as you can see here, and you've also got the ramp up to the DC-6 Dyna, which people would walk up obviously to enter through a side door here. You may notice this section here, this is where the kitchens are to serve the DC-6 Dyna, something I've been working on. I hopefully will be making better progress on this section very soon. Recently, in the last week or so, I have acquired lots of reference imagery for this area here, so I'll be able to model it looking as realistic as it can, based on obviously the pictures I've got from being up at the airport and going around taking reference photos. Okay. Here we have the car park area for the L3 commercial training building. L3, one of the big aviation training organisations, had a ground school based at Coventry. However, within the last year, since the start of the coronavirus pandemic, they have stopped any operations from Coventry, and this building is now vacant currently, which is quite a weird sight considering it's probably one of the biggest buildings regarding office space on the whole aircraft site. But this airport building is now empty in real life, but it'll be interesting to see what happens to that over the next couple of months, a couple of years, depending on what happens with the airfield, as it's probably one of the more modern buildings on site. Moving across to this side, we've got the old West Atlantic hangar. West Atlantic no longer fly out of Coventry, they have moved all their operations up to East Midlands Airport. However, really, previously, before that, they were only bringing their aircraft in here for maintenance purposes only, so just shows you a good representation of what the airfield was like. This section here was like when it was at its busiest around 2016-2017, full car park, and you can see all the other bits and pieces of clutter surrounding. So, this section here, this was the classic Air Force apron. You've also got these aircraft across here. You can see those two, the Shackleton and the Nimrod. Once again, two aircraft I'm working on acquiring permissions for to include in the final release. So hopefully they'll be there. Yeah, so these hangars 6 and 7 were the hangars that used to contain the aircraft based at the Classic Air Force Air Base Museum at Coventry. Had loads of vintage aircraft, de Havilland Vampires, Venoms, Dragon Rapides, DC-3s, Jet Provosts, all sorts of aircraft based in these hangars. At this present day, February 2021, there are still a few aircraft contained within these hangars. There are a number of DC-3s undergoing restoration currently inside these buildings. However, you don't tend to see them normally as they are behind the closed doors of the hangar. So, moving on, we've got the Dakota House. Once again, another office style building which now contains the ALMAT Flying Club offices, and this is where they base their operations out of. So once again, another exquisitely modelled building. Like I say, all the airport buildings, the main airport buildings at least, modelled by a good collaborator of the project, who I am working with hopefully over the next couple of months prior to release, in bringing these airfield buildings up to a bit more of a modern day standard with regards to the texturing, and hopefully incorporating a proper PBR workflow with these. So, over here we've got the West Atlantic sort of apron area, along with Hangar 6 and 7's alternate entrances out the back here. Moving across here, as you can see, I've paid particular attention to detail on this part here. It's where West Atlantic used to park up the aircraft that had came in for maintenance over the weekend. These aircraft work very well as static models. They've all got different registrations, got some bits of clutter such as the cargo containers and shipping containers that you see over here, which would have contained spare parts, just various bits that the West Atlantic maintenance team inside this Hangar 5 would have been doing when they were based out of here. So not a whole lot to say about that, so I'll move across. Okay, so moving up here to Hangar 3 and 4, also some more hangars that contained different mixture of aircraft, helicopters, various different types of aircraft. British International Helicopters, in fact, is actually a company, and as well as Patriot Aviation, they are companies owned by the operator of the airport, RCA. They are part of that group of airfields, which also operate, I believe, Bournemouth, Norwich, amongst others. So, looking across to this section here, we've got the Reed Aviation Building, a number of cars parked up, which I believe were a car parking space for probably car leasing company that used to hold their air vehicles here. And I'll move along. So, this is Hangar 1. This is one of the buildings which at the moment currently isn't here at the airport. Like I said at the beginning, the scenery I'm modelling is a bit of a hybrid between a modern day as well as a couple of years ago before these buildings were unfortunately brought down. The building we were just looking at over here, the Reed Aviation Building, which is just a general purpose sort of hangar warehousey kind of building, that is also gone now. Along with the old Air Cadets hut you see here, that's also since been removed. Over here you've got the fuel depot, something that is mainly made up of Asobo default assets at this point, something I may be working on getting up to a bit more of a better looking standard before release, with custom modelled pictures and models. A few static aircraft over here, just sort of fills up this little apron section here rather nicely. And this bit here is one of the more noticeable parts of the airfield that is now no longer there. So this is Anson House. It was previously the home for Aeros, obviously a flying training school, which are now based up at Airport House, which is another building on site, which I did mention earlier regarding them now being based out of Airport House. They were previously based in this building here. I've put some nice little clutter down, such as benches, some nice bushes, all sorts of things which do obviously help give the illusion regarding this scenery. And also I've put a lot of attention to detail with these ground markings here. You've got the bays for the light aircraft, so this is typically, obviously unless you were flying with one of the flying schools based on other parts of the airfield, this is where your aircraft would park up in these bays here. If you're just popping into Coventry, let's say, on a sort of a flight from another airfield, and you weren't based at the airfield itself. So, moving across to the car park section, as you can see, it's all nicely textured. Got some nice vegetation in, as well as the cars, which make it look a bit more dense. The gatehouse section, also modelled in really nice detail. We've got some buses over here, which were present. I'm not quite sure the origin of where these buses came from. However, obviously it was a rather decent opportunity for the coach company who owned these coaches to store them in this sort of parking lot area here. Once again, these have now moved, they are no longer here, but they were there at the point in which I am modelling this scenery on. So, as you can see, the guardhouse got the nice automated barriers, fencing around, just gives a general overview looking back across the other side of the airfield. Airport West tenant sign, similar to the North Gate sign we previewed earlier, shows you the airfield tenants up this end of the airfield still. Moving further back, you can see the Coventry Airport West signs, Coventry Airport West entrance. This is, I would say, the main entrance into the airport. There were a lot of businesses previously located up in this up at this end of the airfield. And yeah, gives a really good overview, gives a good indication of the attention to detail that has been put into the scenery. As I say, has been being worked on for the last couple of months as a bit of a passion project to essentially try and model the airfield in its fullest state and its most detailed state possible. For me, obviously working at the airfield, it's really important to me to just get it looking as good as it can, obviously for people as customers eventually when it does release, and as well as obviously people who've just bought the scenery want the most immersion they can get from this airport, as Coventry Airport itself, with the exception of the UK 2000 VFR airfields package, has never really been modelled in a simulator. Any simulator prior to this, Coventry Airport's been a bit neglected as such. Therefore, this will be the first, in my eyes, obviously detailed representation of the airfield that's available to consumers. So, I'll do a short little cut here, and I'll jump back across and show everybody what the night lighting looks like. Okay, so we'll pick up where we left off previously. So I'll just change the night lighting so you can see it. Okay, right. So it's not going to be the most in-depth overview of the night lighting, as we've previously gone over the majority of the airfield site. Obviously in the daytime, so apart from the night lighting, which you can see, it is pretty much what you see is what you get. So, starting off, Coventry Airport signs are illuminated. Obviously does add a good amount of immersion. Not that you'll be driving into the airfield unless somebody wacky does end up releasing a car for Microsoft Flight Simulator, which I can probably see happening, to be quite honest. Okie dokie. Let's jump up here. This scenery does run very well. The recording at the moment might not give it the best. It might not give you the best impression of the frame rate which it runs at, currently, for me, it's running at about 80 FPS. That's on ultra settings at 1440p, so it's not heavy on performance whatsoever. And no matter what your system, obviously as long as you're realistic with your components, I do believe you will also get a great experience like I am currently. So, floodlights from these lamps here. You also got the gatehouse illuminated, the lamp on that, just illuminating some nice splash lighting below it. You come across to here, and you can see where there's been work on the emissive lighting from these buildings. So the lighting from the windows does emit a nice glow, as you can see here. The lights onto the apron do illuminate rather nicely. They light up the apron and the fuel station. I've tried to get this as realistic as possible. I don't have too many reference images from the airfield. However, I do believe this is a good representation of what the airfield would look like at night, especially this area, which isn't too much of an issue regardless, as the airfield currently does not open at night anyway. So I'll just do a slow pan around. Over here, I'll just move across to the front of Hangar 1. Okay, so you see we've got some nice splash lighting from the front of Hangar 1. Just lights up the front area of that. Over to the left hand side you have the Reed Aviation building, which we spoke about earlier, and you've got some nice skylights coming out of that building. Shows there's obviously work going on inside, even at night. Once again, Hangar 3 and 4 does have some splash lighting. Each hangar's different. There's not really any sort of set convention for each of these hangars with regards to them having the same lights. They do all differ with regards to colours, spacing of the lights, etc, etc. And it does really show up the nice properties of the PBR of the default Asobo assets, such as these vehicles. Get some nice light mounting off them. Moving up here, you've got the night lighting on hangars 5, 6 and 7. Does give a nice sort of dull glow down onto the ground below them. And one area I'm particularly pleased with is this section here. So you do have the lights nicely diffusing onto a fuselage of this ATP below. And you've also got the lights coming out of the hangars as if there are obviously people in the hangars working on them. So moving up here between hangars 5 and 6, you've got the staff parking area for West Atlantic, and obviously anybody working in hangars 6 and 7. Also got the offices for the old West Atlantic building, emitting some nice glows from the windows. Like I say, does not represent the final product, and it may even look better than this in the final release with the inclusion of PBR texturing, should that come about. Moving up here to the L3 building, like we mentioned earlier, this section in real life does not actually include much flood lighting as such. Really, the only lighting around the airport is just lighting from buildings and the surrounding. Got some nice spot lamps coming out from there. Moving up here, we'll move across to these ATPs. Okay, so as you can see, these ATPs here, there's a little bit of lighting on them currently. In real life this would not be the case, however, unfortunately with SDK at the moment, there's actually no way of removing default lighting sources. So for example, we've got this like imaginary light in the air over here. As I say, nothing I can do about this currently, which is a bit of a shame, but I guess it does make them visible at night, however realistic that may be. I'll just speed up the camera a tiny bit. So, you can see we've got some apron edge lighting, taxiway edge lighting. This will all be adjusted to match the real airport before release. Okay, so moving back across to the north section of the airfield I was mentioning earlier, and we've got night lighting across the fire station surrounding that. As you can see, looks really nice. The lighting system in the new sim does look amazing, especially with obviously custom modelled assets. Got the control tower, similarly, some nice lighting showing out of that. These sort of porter cabin-esque buildings. The Aeros building, once again, like I mentioned earlier, the airport house, which Aeros is now situated in. Got some spotlights out the front here, just illuminates the car park. And the Airport Flight Centre, which is a very modern building, caters for a lot of aircraft which are based there. Moving up here, we have another example of the unfortunate placement of those mysterious bulb or globe kind of looking lights. So for example, right in the centre of the screen at the moment, you can see these bulbs as such. Now these don't really have any source, they're not present on any lamppost or anything, they're just floating in the air. Unfortunately, there's no way of removing this in the current revision of the SDK. However, with my aim of making the scenery as realistic as I can, if it's not fixed before my scenery releases, it will be released with this fixed at a later date. Like I say, I'm really at the mercy of the SDK at the moment regarding if I can fix this or not. So, similar goes with the Air Museum. We've got some of those phantom lights showing up, which would not be there in real life. However, I guess it does provide a bit of illumination to these aircraft, which you normally would not see in the dark. And moving down, you can see on the right hand side here, just another little thing, we have just the sort of door lights illuminated, adds a nice little touch to this. So, up here, we have another light illuminating the entrance to the Coventry Airplane Club, Flight Simulator Midlands, and also the Tudor Environmental area. Moving further up, you can see the Coventry Airplane Club, Flight Simulator Midlands building. It's got some nice splash lighting on the side. You can also see the reflectiveness of these windows, so it does reflect the objects which you would see in real life if you were obviously to be looking at this angle with the nice reflections. Also got some people inside the building. This is just texture work at this point, however it may be altered at some point in the future to be a bit more realistic. And we can move down, have a look at the junction which I've been working on. Let's speed up the camera a little bit. Move down here. So yeah, this is the Rowley Road, which does run parallel to the runway in a sense. Also an area where I will be adding more street lighting resembling what it's like currently. And as you move down here, you do see these custom road markings I've been working on. And the traffic lights and all these other globes, which unfortunately I can't remove, as mentioned. But the overall look and feel of the area here, which is captured, does entirely represent what it's like in real life. So yeah. Really, then, in which case this has just been a real just quick and rough overview of what I've been working on. And yeah, any updates will be previewed either on this channel here, over on my Facebook, which is www.facebook.com/mtscenerydesign, or if you just wanted to obviously search in MT Scenery Design into Facebook. Just to finish you off with a short little preview of obviously how awesome the new sim looks with regards to reflections. Just changed the weather to showers, and as you can see, look how incredible the reflections look on the pavement. It's really stunning, and it does show, obviously, not just the capability of this scenery I've made, but obviously the capability of all the developers who are making scenery for a new sim, with what they've got to work with and how realistic they can make the sceneries look. So thanks for watching, everyone. I know it's been a bit of a long video, but I just really wanted to give people an overview and a bit of a status update on what the airfield looks like and what I've been working on, what I'm looking at working on in the coming weeks, and just to give some sort of scope as to the detail I've been going into with this scenery. So I'll talk to you all soon. Enjoy the video, leave a like, comment, subscribe. Be really good if you guys could leave a like on my Facebook page, as that's where the majority of my updates will be posted on. And I'll see you in a future video, I guess.